Hey, Orange and Brown Talk listeners, Dan Labbe here. Kay Cabot and Ashley Bastock are going to join me on the pod today, and it gets a little wonky because we start by talking about the Browns' offensive line and how they've rebuilt things, who might be starting where, and then all of a sudden the Maxx Crosby trade. The Ravens failed his physical and sent him back to Las Vegas. They get their 2 first-round picks back. That happened while we were recording, and so we reacted to that in real time. So you're going to get to hear that, and then we talk a little bit about Browns pass catchers. So a little bit of a weird pod for you today, a little bit of a quicker pod too. The new league year starts at 4 o'clock on Wednesday. I think we'll have a lot to talk about when we get to tomorrow's pod. If you're on socials, please give us a follow. That's TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Twitter. Just go look for Orange and Brown Talk. Give us follows. Okay. A very weird edition of the Orange and Brown Talk podcast starts right now. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Dan Labbe, Kay Cabot, Ashley Bastock with you here on day 2 of the NFL's legal tampering period. We are less than 24 hours away from the official start of the new league year. It's right around 8 o'clock here on Tuesday when we're recording this, and I think this is how I opened yesterday's pod, but I'm going to say it again. Mary Kay, we were promised offensive linemen, and Andrew Berry has delivered offensive linemen. He just continues to remake this line on whole new levels. Once again, we had to wait a little while to pod because the Browns signed someone right about the time when maybe we would have podded, Elton Jenkins, who the Packers moved on from. He suffered an injury at the end of the year last year. He's coming in, has played center and guard. 2 years, $24 million, same day that they re-signed Tevin Jenkins. Let's start with Elton Jenkins, because this one is the really interesting one to me, because that's starter money. Now, whether that's starting at center or starting at guard, I think we'll find out, but probably at center. But I think what we're seeing is kind of this idea with some of these guys, like, hey, this team is setting up, putting the best 5 guys out there in whatever formation that looks like, especially on the interior. And when you're paying Elton Jenkins $24 million over 2 years, he's got to be one of those best 5 guys.
Yeah, especially because there's $20 million guaranteed. If there weren't all that guaranteed money in the deal, then you might be thinking a little bit differently about it. But when they're throwing that much money at him, then he's going to contribute somewhere. As you mentioned, again, it could be center, it could be guard. This could signal the end of Joel Bitonio, perhaps. Not really sure. We still really don't know exactly what his decision is going to be, but it just seems like they're throwing so many bodies at the line that it's almost hard for me to imagine that he's coming back, but I don't know. I really don't know. It almost feels like it did back when Joe Thomas was retiring, and there was just radio silence for weeks, maybe even months. And then he announced his retirement. We couldn't get anything out of anybody. And it feels like that to me, like they're just setting it up for, for an announcement because Joel deserves that. So we'll have to see what that's going to be all about. But if nothing else, they're throwing a lot of bodies and a lot of money at this project.
Yeah, and at least with Joe, we had sightings of Joe Thomas. I remember he was at the Sports Awards that year, and I think there were some other sightings of him where you started to look less like an O lineman and more like a power forward, like a high school power forward. And it was like, oh, yeah, I think this is probably going to happen. We haven't even really seen Joel anywhere, and I know you said that he was in the building on Monday. He's been around the building, and so there's that, but we haven't even seen Joel, so we can't even speculate based on if he's lost a ton of weight or anything, if maybe he's going to retire. But I do think, Ashley, we were talking before we hit record here. Obviously, they have added clear starters to this offensive line, but I don't know if they've added anyone that necessarily precludes making a move down the road, whether that's clearing up a spot for Joel or, drafting a tackle, still very much in play. Heck, drafting a guard could still be in play at some point. Like, this is very Andrew Berry, the way he builds this thing and approaches free agency and then eventually the draft. He's not really painting himself into a corner anywhere.
He's not, and basically all these guys could play in multiple spots. I mean, we were even talking about re-signing Tevin Jenkins. I mean, we saw Tevin Jenkins playing some at tackle when there were injuries, right? So I like this approach in terms of the versatility. Like, it's not like they're checking boxes and saying, okay, like, other than Elton Jenkins, like, that is essentially to me starting center money in the NFL if you are giving him that much. Like, that feels maybe the most locked in, but even then, not necessarily. So I think that approach gives them some flexibility. But I mean, I do agree with basically what Mary Kay was getting at there. Like, the Joel News, the radio silence is interesting in all of this to me, and we don't know anything. But I even think about last year when he was at the coaches clinic in like February, which
Yeah.
obviously not the same coaching staff this year, but Mary Kay called Joe Thomas after that. Mary Kay wrote that story about Joel taking advice from Joe. Like, he was just more out there. And then I've kept coming back to, and again, doesn't mean anything. People's minds can change, but him getting so emotional on that locker cleanout day when he was talking about his career. I thought that was interesting because I can count on one hand the number of times I've seen Joel Bitonio get emotional in 6 years of covering the team. I'm sure for you guys it's the same. You've covered him longer. And the only other time I could really think of was when Nick Chubb suffered his knee injury in Pittsburgh. So that's kind of been in the back of my mind too as we've gotten radio silence on this.
So I guess if we had to kind of lay this out, Mary Kay, just based on what they've signed, right? Like Titus Howard is going to start most likely at right tackle. I suppose if they drafted one of these guys who has been playing right tackle and they just aren't quite ready to move him, they could probably kick him over to the left side. But I'm probably your right tackle. Zion Johnson is going to start at one of your guard spots. I'm going to assume Elton Jenkins is here to start at center. We'll see. Tevin Jenkins, I kind of view as a guy that could come, especially because we don't know the money yet, and unless I missed it, he's going to come in and probably can compete for a starting job. But if nothing else, he's a guy that can play. I'm pretty sure he can play center too. So I think he can play all five positions on a game day. So he can at least be, added depth on a game day and a guy that can compete at guard. I think the thing here is how quickly we can sort of close our eyes and envision, even though I was just saying, I don't think they're locked into anything necessarily other than, Johnson, Jenkins, and Howard are going to be starters. I, I think we can envision kind of what this line is going to look like here. And we're only, not even a full 2 days into the start of the tampering period.
Right. I mean, Andrew is just signing and acquiring guys at breakneck speed. He was not messing around when he said he was going to pull from all different kinds of places and sources and restock this offensive line. They had to do it. And he is putting his money where his mouth is and his money where his line is. They're offensive line snobs. He has said that many times before, and they know the importance of protecting the quarterback and keeping him upright. So, they have plenty of guys to work with. They will have different guys that can do different things and that have the versatility to move around to different spots. And it's just going to be a matter of putting the puzzle pieces together when all is finally said and done. And it does seem like it's shaping up for them to find their left tackle in the draft. And there are plenty of them in the draft, it seems. But once again, it's hard to say because I think it's very difficult to nail it. It's difficult to get that right in the draft. And so we'll have to see how that goes. But it seems like it's headed that way.
And they have also put themselves in a position where they don't necessarily. I still think they're going to take, if they stay at 6, I still think it's going to be a tackle. That would be my guess right now. But again, I just don't think they've put themselves in a position where they absolutely have to do it. Maybe they've given themselves some flexibility to trade down. They've just created this, like if they really fall in love with one of these receivers and they think he's worth a top 10 pick and they want to go a tackle at 24 or something, they could do that. I just think a lot of this, Ashley, too, is just about this flexibility. And this is kind of Andrew going back to, I think what Andrew has always told us he is. Like, free agency is where you address your immediate needs. The draft is where you address your long-term needs, and kind of approaching this whole thing like an expansion team all along.
Yeah, I mean, he's stayed true to his word, I think, with all of that. And I mean, he's stayed true to his word in how they want to go about this O-line rebuild, right? I think so far it's been exactly how he's mapped out. They traded, they made some free agent moves. I think they view Tevin Jenkins as someone they have potentially developed into or they have developed into a potential starter for them, at least a contributor. So that's another thing. And I oh, sorry. I just saw the Maxx Crosby
This is
thing.
this
This
is
is live.
interesting.
I just saw the Maxx Crosby news, guys.
the
That
the Ravens are
yeah, the
backing
phone
out of the
started
Maxx
blowing up.
Crosby trade, which
Yeah.
happening
What
Wow.
is
here
that about?
in real time. So the statement the Raiders have put out is the Baltimore Ravens have backed out of our trade agreement for Maxx Crosby. We will have no further comment at this time.
Oh, okay.
I mean, Mary Kay, of
Wow.
all the wild things, I mean, we see changes happen a lot and when trades are agreed to and contracts get agreed to, but to have this trade backed out of this is wild. I don't even I mean,
I totally
instant
lost my
reaction
train
here.
of thought. Yeah, I was yapping about nonsense, and this happened. I don't even know what I was yapping about.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
so
know. I'm flummoxed. Uh, this was the trade that rocked, the first day of, or whenever they did it. This was the trade that rocked free agency this cycle, and now it is no longer, and he is back out on the market, or maybe he'll end up with the Raiders somehow. I don't know if they have any more money for him. They probably don't. So this is a very, very interesting development. I don't know. I don't know where this is going, but I just saw a tweet where they just lost $30 million in cap space. The Raiders did.
well,
So
yeah,
they've
what does this do to like all of that's interesting. Like, what does this do to all of these deals they've just signed? I mean, they just backed up the Brinks truck for Tyler Linderbaum, and I mean, they've been going crazy in free agency rebuilding this thing. And now
Yeah.
Maxx Crosby is coming back into the mix, apparently.
wow. I mean, they better go and find themselves another deal really quick, because they need that money. I mean, they can't be in dire straits tomorrow when they have to be cap compliant and they have to officially sign off on all the moves that they've made, and they've made plenty. So this is really a huge development, and it's very, very interesting. I wonder where this is going to go tonight. But yeah, that's how things go in free agency in real time. Anything can happen at any moment, and you just never really know what is going to hit you at any given time.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking too, like, what does this do? I'm trying to remember the other teams that were kind of in the mix for him. Like Dallas was in the mix, right? They were interested, and
Mhm.
some of these other teams, like, what does this do to those teams, and what does this do to the deals that they've made? Like, does this change maybe some of those deals? Like, Ashley, there could be a huge domino effect here, not just with like the Raiders deals, but like, what if some other team is like, oh, now we can go get Maxx Crosby
Yeah.
and we know what it costs. So, hey, sorry guys, I know we agreed to this contract, but we're going a different direction here.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I've already gotten some texts with like my friends wondering, well, how can they do that? Like, this is the reminder that the league year has not started yet. That is not until 4 p.m. tomorrow, Wednesday, 3/11. So none of this is official. All of this technically could still be fluid. It's not common, obviously. But yeah, like I'm really curious about the domino effect because the money with him and where he ends up, and now, like we're saying, the Raiders' ability to do business tomorrow, and any other team that might still want him, and possibly other contracts they now have to worry about that they thought they were done having to worry about and done having to do the math on. So, I mean, it's going to be a lot of late nights for people in Las Vegas today, I would imagine, and some of these other teams that had really done their due diligence on a possible trade for Maxx Crosby.
And
Well,
go ahead, Mary Kay.
I was asked on the radio this morning about the Browns supposedly making a pitch for Maxx Crosby, and I just can't imagine that they would have done that. So that just didn't sound right to me. I would be actually quite surprised if they did do that. I don't know how in heaven's name they could have thought they would afford him or anything like that. So I just don't see that that was a thing. But once again, you never really know what happens or doesn't happen, or who was in on somebody who wasn't in on somebody. But now, yes, this is going to have a ripple effect, a domino effect, because some teams made agreements with edge rushers. And what if they really wanted Maxx Crosby as their number one choice? So we'll see where this is going to go. I'm very curious to find out why the Ravens did this. Very, very curious. Of course, they have a new head coach. I don't know what Eric DaCosta is thinking here, but before too long, we are going to hear why the Ravens backed out of this.
Yeah, because as of right now, there's nothing about like a failed physical. There's nothing about all this stuff will come out. I did see the guy from Spotrac just tweeted that the Raiders lost like $30 million in cap space because of this. So I don't know, and it makes me wonder too, Ashley. Like, do the Ravens have something up their sleeve now all of a sudden? Like, did something come along that made them think, you know what, this is better than trading, what was it, 2 first-round picks for Maxx Crosby? Like, I don't know. Like, are the Ravens up to something here now in the background?
Yeah, like that part of it is fascinating. And didn't I read somewhere that the Ravens had like never traded first round picks for a veteran player before? What did you guys see that stat? Or they have one time?
What was it, Mary Kay?
No, I'm seeing now that Jordan Schultz is saying that he got a text from a GM saying Baltimore is going to sign Trey Hendrickson.
Well,
Now,
yeah, that's their guess. Yeah,
it's not a definitive thing, but maybe that's what they're doing without having to give up 2 first round picks for him.
Yeah, because the Hendrickson market hasn't really developed at all.
No, so maybe that's what. Now Diana Rossini is saying Maxx Crosby did not pass his physical.
Okay,
today.
so it was a physical. All right. Well,
wow.
So now I also wonder too, like, could they revisit this for less, I guess,
for
if he didn't pass
price.
his physical? Could they say, like, maybe it's not 2 first-round picks at this point? Maybe it's a first and a second, or I don't know. I mean, look, this is all happening in real time and speculating, and maybe by the time you're listening to this, there'll be more answers, but wow, the NFL, it never disappoints. You do wonder, though. Conspiracy Dan is kind of feeling a little bit like, yeah, did he really fail his physical? Like, did they have to fail him on his physical? Is there a reason they failed him on his physical? I don't know. Shenanigans going on in Baltimore. We'll see what happens. So it's going to be a very interesting day tomorrow now, all of a sudden, as the Raiders kind of try to get out from under that contract, probably, so they can keep all their guys. Mary Kay, what if Tyler Linderbaum just goes back to Baltimore?
I mean, who knows where this is going to go now? And what if this kicks off a, just a frenzy of deals coming undone, right? And we don't usually hear about that, but
we just sat here and talked about Elton Jenkins coming to Cleveland. But again, like, if Tyler Linderbaum suddenly becomes available again, I'm not saying the Browns would necessarily back out of that deal, but it just, again, the domino effect could be crazy. Depending on where Maxx Crosby ultimately ends up and how quickly the Raiders can flip this if they're able to. But yeah, that's and I did like a team like the Eagles were really slow to kind of get into free agency. Do they have a little flexibility available now to get in on this or something? It's crazy. All right, let's go back and talk a little more Browns offensive line, I guess.
We're also shocked.
So let me ask you this. Okay, we've talked a lot of Browns offensive line. We don't have to go a lot longer here, obviously, because it was a quiet day. And we touched on this a little bit yesterday. It seems like the Brian Thomas stuff has cooled a little bit. Romeo Doubs signed with New England. He's a guy that I would have been interested in the Browns bringing in. Mary Kay, now that the Browns have sort of nailed down this offensive line, and maybe there's one or two more guys out there they could add, but now that they've nailed down the key pieces of this offensive line, do you expect that between now and even if it's not 4 o'clock tomorrow, maybe it's just over the course of the rest of this week, where do you think they turn their attention to at this point? Is receiver still a priority here as we go through the rest of the week?
Maybe, I don't know. It's really hard to say. I really thought that they would end up with a receiver by this point. But I think we're now at the point where if they are going to get one, they're probably going to have to look more so in a trade than anything else. And I don't know if they really necessarily want to do that, or maybe they have something up their sleeve for the first round of the draft. We know that they are very confident in their ability to bring Jerry Jeudy up off the mat next year. We know they really like Isaiah Bond, and they're super high on Harold Fannin. So I don't know where they're going to get a few more weapons in the pass catching realm, but I think they need to. I think they need two more sort of premier 1,000-yard capable type of receivers. So we'll see. I don't know where they would come from. I don't know. I just don't know what they have in mind in this regard. Maybe they're going Carnell Tate at number 6. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, again, with this idea of how they've addressed this offensive line, not putting themselves in a position where they absolutely have to take tackle at 6, even though I still think that might be where they go. But Ashley, like, to me, I just, to Mary Kay's point about having, those 1,000-yard quality type of receivers, it's a lot to put on a rookie to come in and do that. Like some guys can handle it, some guys can't. And it takes time, especially if there's unrest at the quarterback position. So I would like to see them find some veteran out there, and you can still draft a Carnell Tate or a Jordan Tyson or one of the, KC Concepcion later in the, whatever. You can still draft one of these guys and hope that they develop into one of your top 2 or 3 receivers. But I would be a little nervous if all they do is add young guys to this pass catching core. I would like to see at least one veteran of some type added.
I would be too, and like my concern is multiplied because for years and years and years now, we've watched this front office, what to me has always felt like leave it a step or two short in terms of their receiver room. And they've had different ways of justifying it, whether it was like last year with Harold Fannin and how much they wanted Quinshon Judkins involved in the pass game, right? Like we've been down this road with them before where they just have always, I think, felt better about their receiver room than we have from the outside looking in at it. So that would be my concern too, is like how much work are they actually going to do there? Because I think they need a lot. I think it's a mistake just to bet on the fact of, oh, we're going to get new eyes on Jerry Jeudy and it's going to all be better again. And maybe it will be, but I think you just cannot afford to take that chance and for sure have it be successful. Like it's not going to work out like that, I don't think. So I too would like to see them do more. And look, I think if they do take a receiver at 6, or if they, trade slightly down or something and take a receiver still in the top 15, like there is good enough tackle talent in this year's draft that I think somebody is going to be there at 24. Like so many mock drafts and draft analysts have, before free agency began in earnest, like had them taking 2 tackles in a lot of these mock drafts with both of their first round picks. So there's enough depth there for them to get a contributor. We were talking about beforehand, even the top tackles in this game, like I'm thinking about Maui Noah and Fano, those 2 guys out of Miami and Utah. Those are guys people talk about with their versatility of, are they actually tackles or could they actually be guards? Or Maui Noah, I think, even took some snaps at center at the combine during drills, and he could play anywhere in theory. So that to me is always interesting when you have those guys as your top tackles, but people are talking about them as maybe they're actually interior guys. So who knows? That's a long way of saying who knows, but I think you could get a receiver and feasibly still a really good tackle at 24.
Okay, before we go, real quick, where's Maxx Crosby week 1 of the 2026 NFL season? Who's he lining up for? I'm gonna say the Dallas Cowboys.
Okay, that's a good one. Just for the sake of throwing something else out there, I'll say the Eagles.
It's a good one. That's a Howie
I'll
Roseman
say
move.
that is a Howie Roseman move. I'll say the Ravens and say they're doing this all to get the price down. It's a bold strategy,
That'd be
but they
interesting.
don't want to pay that price.
All right. Well, I thought it was
Um,
just going to be boring O-line talk on the pod today, but then that happened. So you got some real-time reaction to the Maxx Crosby news. We're going to wrap things up there on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Follow our socials. Just look for Orange and Brown Talk wherever you're on social media. You'll find us there. Find us on YouTube, Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com. And of course, if you're not subscribed on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, get subscribed. And leave us some reviews there as well. From Mary Kay and Ashley, I'm Dan. Thanks for listening, everybody.